August 29th, 2005. A day that will never be forgotten. A day that will remain one of the darkest days in the history of the United States. Hurricane Katrina. One of the United States' most destructive and devastating hurricanes, killing more than 1,800 people in its path and causing more than $145.5 billion in damages, had a significant impact, more than most other hurricanes. The primary place of destruction was New Orleans, Louisiana, a place below sea level and was ill prepared of what was to come. Although many had thought they had dodged a major bullet, that wasn't the real truth. New Orleans, Louisiana, is a place where most of the population was poor and black residents, and they were right in the path. But as bad as this storm was, there was a more devastating and significant story, and that was the amount of people that were not able to leave, not just because they chose not to, but because they couldn't afford it. And the bigger part of that, the government provided no support. While researching, I had the opportunity to dig through a bunch of sources, and I found this. Is this what the pioneers of the civil rights movement fought to achieve? A society where many black people are trapped and isolated by their poverty, as there were segregation laws? If September 11th showed the power of a nation's united in response to a devastating attack, Hurricane Katrina reveals the fault lines of a region and nation rent by profound social divisions. Seen through these images, dead bodies remain stranded on streets, sidewalks, walkways, and more. All the people who were unable to get the support they needed and the financial aid to help them get to safe locations. After this horrible response, many were going after the Louisiana governor for being ill-prepared. But the real story remained that she declared a state of emergency a day before anyone else. There were many people who criticized the response of the governor, with one of the biggest names being Kanye West.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
The shelters that were put into place for these people to go to were not much better. Many have said that they had murders, rapes, drug overdoses, and much more at these major sites. And although government officials deny that any of this happened, there were numerous confirmed deaths. Inside Edition was one of the first news agencies to gain access to the Superdome. Check out the images they were able to capture of all the damage and destruction left behind from not only the people, but the storm itself.
Looking at the first incredible video from inside the New Orleans Superdome since the evacuation. We were the first camera crew allowed inside. Shafts of light from gaping holes in the roof illuminate the scene, remnants of hell for up to 35,000 people. To get here involved an incredible journey through the abandoned city where the only traffic is army trucks. We waded through flood water that has become a toxic soup.
Many have blamed the nation's division to lead to not getting faster assistance. According to Carol Dorothy of the Pew Research Center, just 19% of blacks rated the federal government's response to Hurricane Katrina as excellent or good, compared with the 41% of whites. And nearly 3 times as many whites, 31%, as blacks, 11%, said that President George W. Bush did all he could to get relief efforts going quickly. With all that in mind, George W. Bush wasn't even there to support these residents of these areas, or the government officials that were struggling with this overwhelming event. And while all this was going on, the President of the United States remained aloof from the disaster. Day after day, George W. Bush continued a long-planned vacation at his 1,600-acre Prairie Chapel Ranch in Texas. And his staff didn't want to burden him with the detailed information about the situation on the Gulf Coast. While Katrina made landfall, Bush had been on holiday at his ranch for 27 days, according to CBS News. If that doesn't show a president doesn't care, then what does? The crazy thing is that these natural disasters just keep happening over and over and over again. So for me, although I mainly focused on how we judge others with the goal of expanding our knowledge about race and racism, my topic kind of covers all three of our different choices. One, how we form judgments. Yes, form judgments in regards to our own things, but form judgments in regards to what we don't know people are going through. For example, when I talked about having to not have the money to leave. A lot of people just think that these people chose to just stay there. But the real truth was that a lot of people actually didn't have the funds and to support their families and actually get them to a safe location. And also how we judge accurate versus inaccurate information, I touched upon also. And I'll touch upon here in a second as well when I talk about Hurricane Sandy. But it's really important to make sure that these people that are going through these struggles actually have the opportunity to hear and learn the correct information. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit the Northeast.
Reporting tonight from the wreckage of the town of Seaside Heights, New Jersey, where the destruction is just biblical. There is water everywhere. This town was nearly swept away into the sea. But more important tonight, there are still dozens, maybe scores of people behind me. They're still stranded in the dark, in the cold, still awaiting rescue in the wake of a storm that ripped homes from their foundations, reduced piers to rubble.
A place where hurricanes of this size just don't usually hit. Once again, another place ill-prepared for what was to come. But by this time, evacuation orders were taken more seriously. But discrimination arose, and now it was on the rebuild process. Hurricane Sandy killed hundreds of people and caused $128 billion in damage, the most since Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. According to a 2014 report by NBC News, the FSHC determined that the resettlement program rejected 40.7% of African Americans and 22.8% of Latinos, compared with 14.9% of white residents of the same low and middle income status. During this time, Republican Governor Chris Christie couldn't even be reached for comments stemming to all these reports. He was MIA, as they say. For me, Hurricane Sandy hit hard for my family too. Sitting without heat, electricity, and basic essential needs for over 2 weeks, without any comments from government officials, was concerning. Still to this day, though, Black people struggle with the fear of what if? What if we have another Hurricane Katrina? What if Hurricane Sandy comes again? And what if the government doesn't step up and do better? Because right now, the government still has not provided support to those struggling from these issues.